So there's a new leak of offshore financial documents called the Paradise Papers, and the scope of it is massive. So right now there are 382 journalists investigating the documents in 67 different countries, where 120 politicians and country leaders are named, and it covers 19 tax havens and 2 offshore management firms. So since the scope of this is so massive, I want to focus my coverage in this video on the reactions from progressive or socialist leaders in the UK, the US, and in Canada, and how the Paradise Papers directly relate to specific stories coming out of each of those countries. So first up, I want to discuss the UK, where it's been reported the Queen's private estate invested millions offshore in a Cayman Islands fund. So this was Labour Party leader Jeremy Corbyn's reaction on Bloomberg TV.
Another subject that we're covering today, of course, is the Paradise Papers. Bodies and individuals who've invested in offshore tax havens, not necessarily breaking any laws. Should action be taken? Should a review be carried out?
Yes, because if somebody has a large amount of money in Britain, which would be subject to taxation on the investment income or whatever form of taxation is appropriate, and they are able to put that money into an offshore tax haven, become wealthy as a result of it, and the rest of us not get the taxation income, be it in Britain or France or any other country that's done that, who loses? Schools, hospitals, fire services, ambulance services. The public realm loses as a result of it. The anger out there, when they read this stuff in the paper about billions being put away in tax havens, it's got to be countered. The only way to counter it is to make sure we have a serious system of tax collection at the point that the wealth is created.
So there should be a review?
Yes, indeed, there should be a review, and John McDonnell has called for, which I support, here's the Labour Party position, an inquiry into all the revelations surrounding the Paradise.
Including the Queen?
Everybody. And so that means the royal household are subject to taxation. I don't know what has happened in that case. These issues all must be part of that realm. And I don't think anybody really wants this to be carrying on.
So as you can see, Jeremy Corbyn is strong on this issue. And even the Queen doesn't get to skirt away from any potential revelations that may come out of these Paradise Papers. Now, let's move on to the US, where The Guardian has covered Bernie Sanders' reaction in an article called "Bernie Sanders Warns of International Oligarchy After Paradise Papers Leak." And so far, the Paradise Papers story that is getting the most attention in the US right now revolves around Wilbur Ross, Trump's Commerce Secretary, with documents showing that Ross has ties to Putin's son-in-law that he failed to previously disclose. But speaking on the Paradise Papers story as a whole, this is what Bernie Sanders said in a quote to The Guardian. "The major issue of our time is the rapid movement towards international oligarchy, in which a handful of billionaires own and control a significant part of the global economy. The Paradise Papers shows how these billionaires and multinational corporations get richer by hiding their wealth and profits and avoid paying their fair share of taxes." So I think Bernie Sanders uses a term here that describes the situation perfectly: international oligarchy. So when we talk about how power and wealth is concentrated at the top in the US and how they control politicians, that's not just in the US, that's international. And what these leaks in the Paradise Papers and other leaks are showing is that yes, there are a select few at the top comprised of wealthy individuals and multinational corporations that control all the money and all the power. And they continue to have the loopholes that allow them to continue to increase their wealth while the rest of us are fighting over the scraps. Now, I want to get to the reaction in Canada here, and this is kind of a bigger story in Canada because there is a direct connection between the Paradise Papers and our Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau. As CBC News reported over the weekend, that information coming out of the Paradise Papers show that Trudeau's chief fundraiser, Stephen Bronfman, is linked to a Cayman Islands tax scheme. And what makes this story even more interesting is that shortly after the election, Justin Trudeau and the Liberal Party vowed to fight tax evasion. Now, there is a lot in this story that I would love to get to, and I may even do a separate video on it, but I really want to focus more on how Jagmeet Singh and the NDP have reacted to this big news. Okay, so that's how they first reacted to it. there was no reaction for a day and a half. Now, Jagmeet Singh eventually did post something on Twitter at 3:45 p.m. saying, "The Paradise Papers reveal extreme unfairness. We need a tax system that works for all, not just the well-connected." But that day and a half of silence from the NDP allowed Conservative leader Andrew Scheer to grab the spotlight. On Sunday, Scheer made a Facebook post ending with Justin Trudeau's well-connected Liberal friends get away with paying less and you pay more. And on Monday, he posted on Twitter with an image saying, "Breaking. Justin Trudeau linked to Paradise Papers, offshore tax havens." Now, the funny part about this is that for 9 years, the Conservative Party was in power, and fighting tax evasion was not on their list of priorities. But regardless of that, they now get to grab the spotlight because the NDP and Jagmeet Singh have dropped the ball. Now, to be sort of fair, the Conservative Party is the opposition party in Parliament, so it would make sense that they would be the strong leaders on this issue. But just in terms of politics, in terms of getting people to recognize your party, it's not productive of the NDP to not make this a big issue. Because when you just discuss social issues, which recently it seems the NDP seem very focused on social issues, then you allow the Conservative Party to come in and own the economy and own the economic issues. So the NDP need to do a much better job of discussing the economy and what a progressive party needs to do in order to improve our situation. But so far, they're really focused on the social issues, and I think it's going to turn off a lot of potential voters for the NDP. But I should mention that Jagmeet Singh is currently not an MP, meaning he's not in the House of Commons. So right now, Guy Caron is sort of the quasi-leader representative of the NDP in the House of Commons, and he did address this issue during question period.
The stats that the Prime Minister is quoting, it actually shows that government is doing a good job going after the small taxpayer, going after the ordinary Canadian, but they always let the big fish go. We know about Stephen Bronfman through the Paradise Papers, but let's not forget that this government, through the Truist Committee, stalled the study on KPMG and the Isle of Man. And let's not forget that this government has done nothing about the Panama Papers. This government has not taken seriously the issue of tax haven and offshore accounts. When will they?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Now, while I did like this response from Guy Caron, the problem is that the Conservative Party still owns this issue on social media. And that's a problem just from a PR perspective and trying to reach out to voters. But hopefully they correct that, and we'll see what happens going forward.